Hello, folks. This is Andrew Gilmore with another episode of Mostly Movies, Maybe Music. And I have a couple of comments to make before I get into introducing my guest today, if you'll hang in there for a minute. But just some housekeeping. First of all, I wanted to comment on the last show I did, the Wheeler and Woolsey episode. That's been getting a lot of feedback. That's one of the, in terms of the number of views, that's one of the top five highest rated shows that I've done, and I've been getting a lot of comments on it. So thank you all for watching that. And I've been talking to Anthony and Brian, and we've decided, number one, we're going to do a part two and talk more Wheeler and Woolsey stuff later in the summer. We're going to get together again, and before that, we've also decided that we're going to start a show with the three of us together. So I'll be doing a second podcast in addition to this one. So, and I possibly have an idea for a third podcast as well. So there are a lot of other projects in the works right now. So if you're enjoying this show, then I hope you'll stay tuned and look at the other things I'm doing. And also, I wanted to mention that my show now has an audio feed. I've been getting some requests to have an audio-only version of this show just for people who like to listen to podcasts at work and that kind of thing. So I'll still have the YouTube video feed of this show, but I also have an audio feed on rss.com. And through RSS, it's also being distributed to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Amazon Music and various other podcasting platforms. So wherever you get your podcasts, you'll probably be able to find my show going forward. So keep an eye out for that and keep an ear out for that. And all the shows going forward will now be on both formats, video and audio. So whatever you need, it'll be there. So that takes care of my announcements. So that brings me to my guest today, who is Mr. Bruce Calvert, who I think is my second guest from Texas, incidentally. And Bruce is an expert on silent films, and well, he knows a lot about various other kinds of films as well, not just silent, but that's kind of his specialty, particularly is silent films. And he has a website called silentfilmstillarchive.com where he posts various stills from silent films that he's collected over the years, and he has a large collection of them, and we'll get into that in a second. And so that's the main topic today, I guess, is silent films, and he knows a lot about the history of early movie theaters and how the concept of showing movies in a theater got started and all of that, so we'll touch on that. And I met Bruce through Facebook recently. We connected maybe 6 months ago or so, and he's become somebody who's a new friend, and we've been exchanging messages. And he heard some of my shows, and I guess liked what he heard, and he offered to come on here. And that's always nice when somebody offers. Usually it's the other way around. I have to write to the other person and say, "Hey, would you be interested in coming on here?" But occasionally I'll get people writing to me and say, "Hey, I'd like to be on your show and talk about such and such," and I usually try to honor those offers most of the time. So Bruce reached out, and I thought, why not? I should have Bruce on the show. So here he is, and I'm sure we'll have an interesting conversation today. So thank you, Bruce. It's good to meet you face to face, and I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Looking forward to it too. Hopefully you won't regret it. But yeah, I think you're a great interviewer and you put your guests at ease. So
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I've really been getting nothing but good feedback on this show so far. So that's good. You know, certain other projects that I've done have not gotten as good of a response, but this seems to be going well. So let's just start at the beginning. How did you become interested in old movies?
well, when I was a kid, I mean, I'm kind of old now, but I was growing up in the 70s when I was a young teenager and older teenager. And my dad had a Super 8 film projector, and he would had a camera too. And so, like at Christmas time or birthday parties, he would take movies of us, since there was no video recorders or obviously
Right.
iPhones or anything. And I was in the Boy Scouts, and there was an ad in the Boys Life magazine, which is their magazine, from Black Hawk Films that said you could buy old movies, and
Mhm.
they were pretty cheap. And I had a paper route, so I bought Laurel and Hardy movie called From Soup to Nuts.
Right.
And it was a silent. It didn't have any music with it or anything because my projector was silent. And I got that, and I just loved it. And I must have watched it like 20 or 30 times till I got enough money to buy another one. And I really got into Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and Laurel and Hardy. I still love them. Cartoons. I didn't have a lot of money, so I mostly bought short stuff. But I would watch. I would get some like D.W. Griffith biograph shorts and stuff, and Our Gang. And When I was about 16, my dad brought home from work an old 16 millimeter movie projector that they used at his job, but they didn't need it anymore because it was like made in the 50s and this was the 70s. And so then I could start buying Black Hawk films that had sound. And so I could buy like Laurel and Hardy, Our Gang, and W.C. Fields shorts and stuff. And man, I loved that. And I would put on shows at my church and stuff. And I went to school at the University of Texas in Austin and got my degree in film and television. And I was really more interested in the history part more than production, but I took production courses too and stuff. And when I was there, it just so happened my dorm was also had the classroom where we took a lot of the film classes, so it had a big auditorium. In my dorm, we would have movie nights once a month.
Uh,
Because again, this was still before, it was right about when videotapes were coming out, but not everybody had them then. Because to get one videotape of a movie was like $80 or something. And
wow.
so it was very expensive. And so we had a group that like once or twice a month we would put on movie shows there, but on 16 millimeter. And I said, "Hey, I've got a bunch of cartoons, Bugs Bunny cartoons, and um, Our Gang, Laurel and Hardy stuff, and silent. And I had some silents that had music attached, and then sound ones too. And so we showed them there too. And I've just always been interested in ever since. And I wasn't able to get a career. Probably the biggest mistake I made in college was not talking to a career counselor. I could have got a job at the Library of Congress or some other archive, but I ended up taking some computer classes and I've been a computer programmer ever since, but it's allowed me to buy a lot of memorabilia and
Yeah.
go to film conventions and film festivals and stuff because in Texas there's not a lot of classic film shows. There's occasionally we get some, but not a lot.
Do you still have a lot of the prints that you collected when you were a kid?
I do. I actually had stopped because, like in the mid '80s, I started buying Laserdisc, and I thought, oh man, films are a lot of trouble. But then in the '90s, when the internet came about, I bet met one of my good friends, Jim Reed, who lives here in Dallas, and he has a massive 16 millimeter film collection. I mean, he's got a room that's just full of it, and then the closets in that room are full of it too and stuff. And he and I and several other collectors started a film collectors group. And so we would just come and each month one person would be in charge of the show. And so we had one guy that liked modern movies and like Jim and I liked old slapstick stuff. And we had one guy that liked educational films and he collected those. And so we would have an educational night. And that started in 1999. It's still going, but we call it the Dallas Classic Film Group now because other than Jim and me, all the other collectors have either moved or they passed away. And so when we do it at Jim's house, he shows film. Usually we do it at my house, I show Blu-rays and stuff. But we have about 20, 25 people who actively come and it's really fun. I mean, I know you program your own
Yeah.
film series for the classes you do, and it's fun for me to pick out something I think, I don't want to show The Wizard of Oz. I need to find a pre-code movie that's going to like blow people's minds away or
Right.
something. And so it's really fun to do that. And we're still going.
Yeah. What's the audience like for that?
Well, we have the same people that come and go. And I have some friends that I have one friend named Kelly Kitchens Wickersham, and she is a publicist for film festivals and stuff. And so she's put on a few film festivals here locally in the Dallas area. Usually classic film festivals, but sometimes independent film festivals and stuff. And so um, she harvests our group and gets us to be volunteers there to whether it's take tickets or help with the projection or whatever they need. And so it's always fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking about the shows that I do and how fun it is when you show something that nobody's ever heard of before and you get to get a big reaction from an audience. So, what's an example of something that you've shown that really blew people's minds?
Um, well, I'm trying to think the one that's coming up next, I haven't shown it yet. It's a double door. It's a 1934 pre-code from Paramount that starts out kind of a women's weepy and ends up turning into a horror movie. I can't wait to spring that on everybody because nobody has seen it at all.
I've heard of
And
that. I haven't seen it.
it's a well, I know you were thinking about doing a pre-code series, but
Yeah.
it's Paramount, so not Warner Brothers. But it's a really I was yelling at the screen like, "Don't do that!" at the end the first time I saw it because I mean the mother-in-law in this is truly evil. So, but I don't know. We've just usually things that are recently out on Blu-ray and stuff. We just like to show stuff, and I just try to pick things that maybe a few people have seen, but not everybody has, you know.
Right. So I wanted to back up a bit. You talked about studying film in college. Tell me more about that.
Um, well, it was good. I really loved it because the auditorium was in my dorm room, so I would usually be taking a class where I would have to go watch a movie once a week. So like I took a class on John Ford, and so we talked about all kinds of things about how he moved the camera and the theme, of course the auteur theory and things like that. But there were other classes that were going on too, and so I would go to the Hitchcock class even though I wasn't taking it because it was cheap and it was something to do. And also where I went to school, we had a foreign language requirement. And it just so happened that if you took classes put on by the foreign language what are the department, it didn't matter that you weren't actually learning to talk. So I took a class in French film and I took a class in Italian film and got exposed to like Ingmar Bergman and all the great 1930s French films and stuff, which I still love, like René Clair and stuff. And so that was
Right.
really fun too, and it was really different.
Yeah, that's something I was going to touch on too, because obviously we can talk about a lot of silent film stuff, but I know you're into a pretty wide range of things. And what would you say your range is?
Well, I mean, I love silent films and like classic films in the 30s and 40s the most, and so that's really what I collect. But if I have to go see a 50s or 60s film, I mean, I like it, and I like French films, whether they're 30s or silent, and German films too. But I mean, I'm not going to go see a horror slasher film that's like really, really violent, but I love
Right.
Psycho. So, um, it's just I try to give every movie a chance if I can. A lot of people th think I'm not going to like that movie because I don't like the subject and something, but you got to approach the movie as like, what is this movie trying to do? Is it trying to scare you? Is it trying to make you laugh? Is it trying to take you to a place you've never been to before? Like I've never been to Scotland in the 1700s or something. And if the movie really transports me back there, then I mean it might be successful and stuff. But I did take a course in screenwriting too, and that was a great course. Our professor there was fantastic. And he said the best movies are not the ones where the hero has problems and he vanquishes the bad guy, wins the heroine and stuff, because you pretty much know that's going to happen. You just don't know how he's going to do it or
Right.
something. But the best movies are where the hero or heroine, the main character or characters, encounter some kind of a problem. They're in distress or something. They have to do something really different and they learn something by the end of the movie. So something that they thought at the beginning of the movie, this is the way the world is, this is the way my life's going to be. And then they go through something bad or difficult. And then at the end, it's really changed them. And it could be bad or good. I mean, the movie could have a sad ending or could be a happy ending or just lukewarm, semi-happy, you know. But if the character changes or they learn something, then the audience may learn something too, and they may experience something that they hadn't thought about before. So,
Yeah. So you like things that are thoughtful.
yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What's an example?
Like 12 Angry Men.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Absolutely.
Great movie because you got all these jurors in there. Some of them want to go home. Some of them are sure that the teenagers has committed the crime, is guilty, and they have this great discussion, argument, whatever you want to call it. And one by one, this one juror starts changing everyone's mind. And you just realize that everything is not cut and dry. A lot of people think the world is all black and white or good, bad, whatever, but there's so many shades of gray and all kinds of in living and in people and stuff. There's rarely any people that are totally bad or totally good unless you're the Pope or something,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
But
They showed that to us in civics class in high school. I've never forgotten it.
uh,
Yeah. So here's a question I ask a lot. I'm just curious about the progression in your life because you said you were taking the Hitchcock class and you started out watching Laurel and Hardy and things like that that most people know about. But then how did you get into taking a deeper dive into the world of classic movies? Because you know a lot of obscure stuff.
well, I wish I had known about it in when I was in my 20s, but when I was in my 30s, after I got married, I worked at a few film festivals that were here in Dallas, but still they rarely showed older films. But when my first son was born, in 1997, um, well, I mean, I know you're not married, but when you're a couple and you're young, you go out and have this great social life, and you have a baby and you got to stay home all the time. Well, that was about the time the internet came out. And ask me again. Oh, how did I get into other films and stuff? Well, the there was a user group called Alt Movies Silent on there, and I was interested in silence, and people were talking about a convention called Cinecon in LA.
Right.
But they showed all kinds of movies. And to me, it was interesting too, because they didn't just show old movies, but they showed movies that had just been restored by different archives like UCLA out in Los Angeles and Library of Congress. And I convinced my wife to let me go. And it was unbelievable to me because everybody there was an old movie fan like me. And growing up in Dallas and Texas, there were hardly any yet. And we hadn't started our film group yet by the time I went, or maybe we had just started it. And just to see all these people and you get to go eat with them and talk about pre-codes or silent movies or whatever, film noir, French films, and then see these movies that no one else had ever seen with a huge audience. It was great. And so I started going to film festivals every year if I could. I've been going to the Silent Film Festival every year since 2023, and I'm a volunteer for it. I can't really be on the staff because I live 2 states away, but I bring memorabilia every year for their display cases. I try to take pictures and other advertisements and other things, programs or show that are about the films that they're showing there. I've been to Cinecon about 10 times. I've been to other places. I've been to Capitol Fest once.
Mhm.
Probably going to go back this year to been to the Library of Congress, to Mostly Lost. Um, 2 years ago, my wife and I, some of our friends said, "Hey, we're going to go to France to watch Napoleon." And I said, "I don't. My wife's not going to let me do that. So sorry, I can't go." And then she said, "Well, if we're going to go to Paris, I can stand watching a 7-hour movie for a week in Paris." So she didn't know what she was in for, but it was great. So it was tough because it didn't have any English subtitles, but I knew enough about
Mhm.
the movies that I was able to keep up with it. And there was a huge symphony orchestra.
Yeah.
And then last year I got to go to Pordenone for a few days, and that was absolutely incredible. I'm definitely going back there. So not this year probably, but Pordenone is just all the latest stuff from all over the world and all of the people that work on all the Blu-ray DVD releases, work in all the archives. They're there, and you can be seeing an American film, then an Italian, French, whatever, and they show newsreels, they show cartoons, they show slapstick comedy, weepies, anything. So, and that's what I like about Cinecon too. They may show a Western that's terrible, but then they'll show another movie about boxing, or they'll show something else, a screwball comedy next. And so
Yeah.
there's always something for everybody.
Right. So I'm just kind of comparing notes because I'm thinking about the experiences that I've had at Capitol Fest, and that's the main festival I go to. But can you think of films you've seen at festivals that really made an impression? Are there any favorites?
Well, the very first Cinecon I went to, they showed a movie from Colombia called Dangerous Blondes with Alan Jocelyn and Evelyn Keyes.
Mm.
And it's kind of like a Thin Man type of movie where he is a mystery novelist. And a friend of theirs is accused of murder, and so she's the meddling wife, and she keeps trying to get him to solve the murder. He doesn't want to, and he's really a bumbling guy. He wasn't unlike William Powell in the Thin Man movies. He's smart, but he's also a doofus, and it's really, really funny. It is really, really funny. So you haven't seen it. I get it's a Columbia from 1943. I have a bunch of pictures from it on, and some lobby cards from it on my website. But that's really funny. One of the best experiences I've ever had. I'd seen Metropolis several times. I think
Yeah.
I had it on VHS. I saw the 80s version that came out with rock score. But when I saw it in Kansas about 10 years ago with the Alloy Orchestra, they're the group that does the non-traditional scores where they're like banging on pans and they have like
Yeah.
synthesizers and stuff. That blew me away. I mean, it was a totally different movie, which is not to say that watching it with a symphonic orchestra score was bad. It's still a great movie there, but it was a different experience with them, with the Alloy Orchestra.
Yeah. Well, I'll jump to another topic. Who are some of your favorite actors? I know everybody kind of has their favorites.
Well, I mean, I love slapstick. So Chaplin, Keaton, Lloyd, Laurel and Hardy, our group in Dallas, we're the Night Owls tent of the Laurel and Hardy fan club. Although we don't get together very often, but I always try to squeeze in a Laurel and Hardy, our gang, or Charlie Chase in our shows, and Jim does too when he does them and stuff. But I would say two actors, actresses that I really like to collect the most, and I'm always on the search out for them. The guy is Raymond Griffith,
Hmm.
who was a silent film comedian in the teens and especially in the 20s. He made it barely into the 30s, and then he was a producer at 20th Century and later 20th Century Fox up through 1940.
Right.
He was known as the Silk Hat comedian. Ben Modell put out a Blu-ray with a couple of his feature-length comedies
Yes.
about 3 years ago, and I supplied Ben with some photos and stuff to use in the documentary and also on the cover of the Blu-ray. And he's just really funny. He's really different. Sadly, more than half of his films are lost.
Hmm.
Um, so it would be great, but a couple of ones that are really great are Paths to Paradise with Betty Compson is a great they're both jewel thieves, and at first they're working against each other, then they decide to work together, and it's really, really funny. Another one is called Hands Up,
Yep.
where it's during the Civil War, where he is a spy for the South. He's trying to steal some gold from the North, and I mean, things do not work out as well as they do for a spy. He's on a firing, he gets on the bad end of a firing squad, but it's still really, really funny. And of course, he gets out. So I really love him. And then Colleen Moore is another one of
Yes.
my favorites, comedian. And like him, a lot of her sound films are either lost or not easily available. And so I would love to see more of her sound films. The Success at Any Price with Douglas Fairbanks Jr. does show sometimes on TCM. It's not a comedy, but she plays his secretary and the woman that loves him and stuff. But her silent films that she made at First National, all the ones that I've seen are great. A lot
Yeah.
of them are lost too, but always ready to see more of hers.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I've watched Raymond Griffith. I'll have to go back and look at those again. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, you mentioned cartoons too. What are some of your favorite cartoons?
Well, when it comes to Disney versus Warner Brothers, I'm definitely in the Warner Brothers camp.
Yes.
I mean, the Disney cartoons are great and the animation's great, the music's great, but they just don't do much for me. But I mean, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, Tasmanian Devil, Bugs Bunny, Yosemite Sam, all those Elmer Fudd, I just love all of them. Moreover, I've probably got about 7 or 8 of their DVD Blu-ray collections. And my church has I'm not in it yet because I'm not quite old enough and I'm still working. They have like twice a month, they show movies in a big auditorium for seniors. They have a great audio video visual setup there. And so I bring them cartoons to show before their feature all the time. So I'm known as the cartoon guy up there, but I have lots of Warner Brothers cartoons to show. And, I like Tex Avery even when he went to MGM.
Sure.
And the Fleischer cartoons are really cool too, whether they're Cocos. The Cocos are kind of hit and miss in the silent era, and then Betty
Yeah.
Boop ones are great in the 1930s.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Warner Brothers director?
Oh man, that is really,
I
really
know.
hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Tex Avery. Probably Fritz Freleng is really good too. I mean, it's so hard to narrow stuff down. That's why it makes me mad when people argue, well, was Chaplin, Keaton, or Lloyd, or even Langdon
Yeah.
the best comedian? It doesn't matter. They're all funny. There's other people that are funny too, like Arbuckle and Mabel Normand and who cares who's the best? To me, whoever I saw last was probably the whoever I think is the funniest right now. So.
Yeah. So when you show cartoons in church, is that for a kid audience or a mixed
Oh
audience?
no,
Or
this is for retirees, so it's
oh,
like 60s, 70s, and 80s people and stuff. So,
oh,
but they love them. And
you might have said that, but I must have missed it.
uh-huh. Oh, and they like another one is what are the ones that they made? Private Snafu
Oh yeah.
cartoons that Warner Brothers made that they were not for general audiences, and some of them had stuff they couldn't show in regular audiences, but they did show them to GIs and airmen that were either on base or out in combat and stuff. So on the front lines.
Yeah, I did a course years ago about World War II cartoons, and I showed all the snafus, and people really liked them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, why don't we talk about your collecting? How did you get into collecting stills from silent films?
Well, my parents, my mom especially, loved shopping for antiques. And so they would go to flea markets when I was a teenager and go shopping. And occasionally I would find a movie photo or a program and buy it and stuff. But I would just buy whatever was available. And if it just looked interesting to me, I'd buy it. And I didn't have a really big collection um, until I got the internet in like the late 90s. And I wasn't on the internet more than a few days, and I found this site called eBay. I don't know if you've heard of it,
What's that?
uh, but and I was just stunned that there was so much stuff from the silent era for sale, and it was cheap. And because I knew people collected movie posters, but the people that you hear about collecting movie posters, they go to heritage auctions and they pay like $400 or $500 for a movie poster from the 40s and have it framed and stuff. And I thought I would never afford that. And posters take up a lot of room anyway.
Yeah.
And but so I bought a single still from 1915 from a lost movie for like maybe $9 or $10. And the lady shipped it to me, and this was back on when eBay had started, and they didn't have where they monitored your conversation. So when you won something, the seller would email you and say, send a check to whatever, and then that you would get whatever your merchandise was. Well, when she sent me the email saying send a check, she said, I hope you like your picture. You know what? I've had these pictures up on eBay for a year and hardly any of them have sold. I was wondering if you would be interested in purchasing them. And I said,
Hmm.
no, I'm not really a dealer and I can't afford all of those at $10 a pop. And she said, well, I'll make you a deal at like 100 of them. How about $3 a picture? And I talked to my wife then because we just had a baby and it was like a lot of money. She said, oh, sure, sure. That can be like your birthday present or something. So I bought all these pictures. And when I got them, I found out why they hadn't sold. Out of the 100, only maybe 10 of them had printing on them saying who was in the movie or what the movie was. And like there were like a couple with Mary Pickford and I recognized her right away. And those had printing on them that said it was from Madame Butterfly from 1915. So that was a pretty rare thing. And it turned out all of these pictures were like 1915 to 1917 and Paramount. So this lady's grandfather or father, whatever, must have worked at a theater that was owned by Paramount Theaters, and that's what they were showing in the teens and stuff. So I didn't know what to do with these other 90 pictures that I didn't know who they were, what they were. And so I had met Bob Burchard, who has passed away now, but he was one of the guys that ran the Cinecon Film Festival, and he'd written a couple books. He's written a book on Tom Mix. I can't remember. He's written another couple books too as a film editor, but he was a huge still collector. And at the time, yeah, I didn't really have a scanner or anything, so I went to Kinko's and took all of my pictures and like photocopied them, got a bunch of paper and emailed him a package with photocopies of the pictures. And he explained to me how you can identify them. And do I have a picture around here? I don't know. I don't have a picture next to me, but a lot of times on the pictures, if there's no printing on them, they will have a code at the bottom left or
Right.
the bottom right. It could be a series of numbers, or it could be a name and then a series of numbers or something like that. And that's what the photographer would write these codes on there so that they could keep track of what the photos were, what film they were from, and so that people could order them. Now, different studios did it differently. Like Fox would write the director's name or the first few letters of the director's name. Like for John Ford, they would write Ford, they'd put a dash, and then if it was his 12th picture at Fox, it would be 4-12. And then if this was picture number 7 that they took on set, it would be 4-12-7. Um, Other studios like Paramount, um, would be the biggest one, but Universal too, they would just write, each film would have a production number. So it would be production 378. Oh, and MGM did this too. And then they would just number the stills consecutively, usually in the order taken, not in the order that they would appear in the final film, because they're taking the stills, weeks or months before the film is assembled and edited. And a lot of times they take pictures of scenes that get cut out of the movie.
Right.
They don't even make it in the movie. And so Bob told me that there were lists of what these still codes were, but of course they didn't know all of them. And so he helped me identify a lot of them. And so, but he told me that basically, if you can identify an actor or actors, if you can get two actors, it's really good, except for a lot of actors were a part of teams. So, like Janet Gaynor and I can't remember who the guy was that
Charlie
was team.
Farrell.
Charles Farrell, that's right. I mean, they were together in like 12 movies, so that doesn't really narrow it down a lot, but you can look at their costumes and maybe figure out what movie it was they were in together. If you also know the studio it came from, that can be really helpful. And if you have that code, you can probably identify what film it's from. And so out of that 100, I think we identified like 95 out of the 100 photos. In those five photos, I still haven't been able to identify. Um, so that's what got me really into collecting. And so I just started, I don't have a lot of money to spend on it, but like once a week, I would buy a photo on eBay. And I started looking at, actors or other, movies that I really love. Like I really love The Big Parade
Sure.
from the silent era. I mean, I think that's the best dramatic movie made in the silent era. And so I would buy a program from the Big Parade. I would buy photos or a Herald or something like that. And you're probably wondering what all this stuff is. Well, I brought examples. So I think everybody knows what a movie poster is. It's like rectangular, usually goes up and down like that, but there's all kinds of different movie posters. That's a one sheet is what most people think about. But there's also
Right.
like three sheets that's wider, six sheets that's really big. It's like twice as tall and three times as wide. There's even 24 sheets that are so big that they go on the side of a building. Not a lot of those left around, but if you go to some movie museums, they have a few of them. But there's
Hmm.
other things like this right here is an
Well,
insert. I'll scoot back a little bit. It's from a 70s movie.
I was going to say
But
this won't work on the audio feed, but they'll
yeah,
just
I
have to
know.
take our
So
word for it.
apologize for that. But anyway, you can see it's tall and skinny. I think the size is 14 wide by 32 long, and you just slide it down into the holder, and it's called an insert. This is for the Ground Star Conspiracy, which was just a 70s movie. I found it at an antique store, and it was cheap, so I bought it. Um, there's also window cards. I really like window cards a lot. Don't have my wife's a decorator, and so if the posters colors don't match the decor of the room, the poster can't go up. But we have a few posters strategically located in our house and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, this right here is a window card that we have framed. It's in our hallway from the tall tree with Randolph Scott. Sorry, the reflection's bad on it. What I love about window cards is they're smaller. They're on cardboard, so they're more durable than a movie poster. You can see that they left a spot blank up at the top, and this one shows Waco Theater, which is south of where I live now, showing. And so the theaters would write or paste something up there for when the movie was coming, and they would put these in literally in the window of the theater. It didn't have like a poster holder, just so you could see what was coming. This one I really like. I spent a little more money on it because Bud Bedecker was coming to town for a film festival, and he directed this movie. And you probably can't see it because it's but he autographed it for me at the very bottom
Oh.
over there, right after it says Arthur Honeycutt, so it says Bud
Oh
Bedecker
yeah.
there. So that was cool. So, but posters are definitely not my specialty though. But there's a lot of other things. Since I collect a lot of paper on movies in the silent era and even in the early sound era, 1929, 1930, there's a lot of lost films.
Yeah.
But in the silent era, like 75% of the films are lost. From the whole era, if you get to the 1910s, it's like 85 to 90.
Hmm.
And then if you go to other countries outside the US, other than maybe France, Germany, England, and Italy, I mean, almost everything is lost. Like India had a huge silent movie industry, and almost all of their silent films are gone. I think there's probably less than five that still exist. Other countries, well, Japan had a good in the 1920s had a good silent film studio system, and I think quite a few of their films are, but still, it's not even 50%
Hmm.
survive. So it's still pretty bad. Um, this right here, this is gigantic. This is a press book. And so what press books are is the studios would send these out. This has a reproduction of the window card on the front. It's for Regeneration, which was known as a colored or a segregated theater. So it was a theater for African American people because all over the country, we think that segregation only was in the South, but it was actually in the Midwest and a lot of places all over the U.S. And it probably was in other countries too, but the U.S. was the worst. And so if you were African American, or even in Texas where I live, if you were Hispanic, you were of Mexican heritage, they would not let you sit on the ground floor. You had to sit up in the balcony. Um, so theaters were just segregated, but this film was made at a studio that specialized for African American audiences, and so all the actors were black. A lot of the directors might have been white, but sometimes they did have black directors too and stuff. And they made movies so that at least black people could go see a movie where the black people were the heroine, or at least it dealt with their struggles in their lives and stuff, rather than having to go to just movies about white people and the only black people you saw were the railroad porter and the maid.
Right.
No. But anyway, a press book had stories on the back of it. Inside, you could cut them out and send them to the newspaper. They were pre-written. They were like pre-written reviews of the movie. Of course, the movie review was great and stuff. It also, the press book would have all this information about what posters you could order, what lobby cards you could order, what pictures you could order, how to ballyhoo the movie and stuff. And speaking of lobby cards, a lot of people collect lobby cards. They're a little more expensive than posters and stuff, but like I just have a few books of lobby cards. I mean, I don't have a ton of them, but I got more than 100, and I just this is like a Randolph Scott lobby card right here from the 1950s. I have a lot. In the 30s and 40s, they were in color. Starting in the 20s, they were in color too. And then 1910s, a lot of them were in black and white. Occasionally they would have some screening on them in color, but lobby cards were always displayed outside the theater. They come in sets of usually 8, but sometimes it could be 10 or 12. And they played up the stars of the movie. They were a lot of times they were garishly colored. Other times they were just color photographs and stuff. And people really like to collect that kind of stuff. And um, it's very artistic and stuff. And lobby cards lasted a long time, up into the 60s, 70s, 80s and stuff. But by then it was all just photographs and stuff. It wasn't, artwork and as much and stuff. There's a lot of weird things too that you can collect. Well, here's one more thing that's not weird. This is a program for the Orphans of the Storm.
Hmm.
It's a D.W. Griffith film with Lillian and Dorothy Gish. Whenever movies in the silent era or the sound era, like Gone with the Wind or Wizard of Oz, if a movie was a big event, the studio would put out a program. It would have all this information on the inside, what the cast was, pictures on the inside. And so they wanted you to feel like you were going to a stage play or something like that, or
Right.
a concert. And so you wanted to know about who all was in the movie. And so you could get a souvenir program. And I have some from the 20s, like from The Big Parade, um, Intolerance, D.W. Griffith's one. That one is from the teens, though, and it's not in color or anything. But you can get programs like this too. Some of them are big, some of them are in cardboard. A lot of the Sometimes even if the studio didn't, a lot of the movie theaters in New York or Los Angeles would make their own, especially for like the premiere or the premiere week, because they wanted people going there to that were waiting in line an hour to see the movie to feel like they were having a really good time. Um, I really, really love, and if you go on my website, I've got like nearly 300 theater programs. So this is a Lowe's weekly theater program right here. This is for the Lowe's Paradise. I think it was in the Bronx. This is from 1936.
Hmm.
So Lowe's would mail or not Lowe's, but the theater would mail these out to people all the time, usually a week ahead. So it would tell you on the inside what's showing. A lot of time, and this is what I really love about these, it would tell you not just what the feature was or the double feature was, it would tell you what cartoons were showing, whether
Hmm.
a Laurel and Hardy, a Charlie Chase, what shorts were showing it. It might say, oh, we're showing the, Fox Movie Tone News or something. And then there would be other things that would say like oddities or sport. Grantland Rice had a series of sports shorts where they would show people playing golf or baseball or all kinds of different things. Or the Bobby Jones made some sports shorts in the 1930s, and like W.C. Fields was a guest, I think, a couple times, where they talked about how to putt, how to drive the ball in golf and stuff. All that stuff fascinates me because we always think about the big features and stuff, but the shorts could be really, really fun too.
Yes.
But if you look at these on my websites, you can see all kinds of different things that movie theaters did. And we may talk about that later on in this show too, because they talk about midnight shows and Saturday afternoon serials. Kiddies come down and watch the serial, and you can watch a Western with the serial chapter and stuff. And we give out free candy and prizes and stuff. Another thing that I really like, and these are really inexpensive, is Harold's. Let's see if I can get this one open. This is for The Scarlet Letter with Lillian Gish from
Mm.
MGM 1926 or so. And these were also mailed out by the theater. They were printed by the studio, but on the back, this one is not in great condition. I just grabbed one. It says the Grand June 13, 14, and 15 right here. And so people would get these in the mail and they would, oh, Lillian Gish's movie is coming this weekend, so maybe we should go see it. Stuff is just,
Right.
and I'm sure that they handed them out on the street or handed them out at the theater when you were there the week before to see what was coming. These are mostly really cheap. You can get them like 10 to 20 bucks. There's always exceptions. Um, if you really like Louise Brooks, you really like Theda Bara, you really like Clara Bow or Rudolph Valentino, there's people that really love those actors and they'll pay $500 if they can get a picture of one of
Hmm.
those actors or actresses. And so those people are kind of hard to collect. But I've been able to get some bargains sometime and get a few pictures of them. Louise Brooks is the hardest. But I mean, heralds are really cool. They're very artistic. And again, I have a bunch of heralds from movies that do not exist anymore. They tell us a lot about stuff. This is one I just got last week. This is a sales flyer from Sigmund Lubin. Now, you may have heard of him because he was based in Philadelphia. Aren't you in
Mm.
Philadelphia?
Yes.
So in the 1910s, where most of the movies were made in New York, there was no Los Angeles movies by then. Lubin was based in Philadelphia, and he was known as the biggest duper of them all because he didn't respect the copyright was pretty toothless back then. And so if Edison or Biograph or Georges Méliès in France made a great movie, Dupin would either copy it directly or here, this is Meet Me at the Fountain. It's a remake of a Edison movie called Personal, where a guy puts a personal ad in the New York paper saying, I'm looking for a wife. Meet me at the fountain and we'll go get married because I'm a count. So, of course, he doesn't really have any money.
Mm.
And so this is just a sales flyer that on the inside it has pictures of what each shot in the film. I know it's a little fuzzy to see, but here, I'll open it up again. It just tells what happens and it tells you how much it costs. These movies were expensive. I mean, this one was, I think, $55 to buy. That's a time when $55 in 1906 was nearly $2,000 in our money.
Right.
Um, so naturally, theaters couldn't do that. And because movies were expensive to purchase, what happened is people started buying a bunch of film prints and then they would rent them out and they were called film exchanges. And so in the Nickelodeon era, they would only show a movie. Well, first of all, this movie was not even 10 minutes long. So you'd have a program of like 5 or 6 movies that might last an hour and a half, and then they would start all over again. Well, after you've shown that, the people that come to the movies might want to come back in 2 days. So you got to find another one. So they could send the film back to the film exchange and get, 5, 6 more movies and show it then. But then that film exchange could send it to another theater that's maybe in another town and they would easily make their money back after 2 or 3 weeks, and then the rest of it was all profit. Well, what happened was by the mid-teens, the studios realized, hey, we're missing out on this money. Maybe we better keep ownership of the prints and just rent it out ourselves to the theater owners. And so that's still pretty much the business model we have today.
Right.
This is really cool right here, cigarette cards. So this is Colleen Moore, one of my favorites right here. And this is number 21 out of I don't know, but so you would buy cigarettes or even cigars, and inside of them was a cigarette card to collect them all, just like Pokemon cards today or whatever, Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And it's interesting to think, well, I could if I wanted to collect all 50 of these, I might have to smoke 50 or more packs, at least
Right.
50. So it might kill me, but I'll get a complete set. And these were popular in the teens, 20s, up through the 40s and stuff too. So another a fun thing to collect. One of the most interesting things right here, this is a stamp from The Goddess with Anita Stewart. It's from chapter 15, I think. Um, for serials to get people to come into the movie theater, if you went the first week, serial would be 12 to 15, maybe more chapters. A few of them went up to 20, 22. They would give you a book and you would get three stamps that had a picture from that chapter. If you went back every week to watch the serial, you could get three more stamps. And if you went to every week, you would have a complete picture book from the serial
Yeah.
and stuff. But I also have some chance with stamps with Charlie Chaplin on them. I guess they just gave them out for souvenirs or something too. And also in the teens, studios would issue like sheets of stamps with all of their stars on them and just a portrait. And these are also pretty cheap. You can get them pretty easily. Of course, it's pretty hard to find the whole thing. I think I have about 9 or 10 from the Goddess out of well, if there were three times 15 out of 45, so probably never be able to find a full collection of them.
Hmm.
And then one more thing, another thing that I really like. These are easy to find and hard to find. It just depends on what you're looking for. This is a postcard of Mary Pickford in Tess of the Storm Country. This was from 1914. She remade this in the 1920s. It's from Famous Players, which later became Paramount. And again, theaters would stamp on the backside when it was coming. This one is not stamped or addressed, but a lot of them you can find on eBay and other places. Um, would have the theater stamp and what day or night it was showing, what time. And especially for the teens, like it's really difficult to find movie stills from movies from like 1912 through 1915 or so. And then after that, movie stills are pretty easy. But in the early teens, there are tons of these postcards with scenes from the film, and on the back is stamped when with theaters showing it. And again, most this film actually does exist, I believe, but most of the ones from the early teens do not.
Yeah.
So that's just an example of some. Oh, wait, I forgot one more. This is really oddball. I only have one of these. I've seen two other ones. This is a coin, a
Hmm.
souvenir coin of Marion Davies in When Knighthood Was in Flower.
Huh.
Came out maybe 22. That's another one that Ben Modell has restored.
Right.
Um, I've seen another one with Gloria Swanson and another one with Rudolph Valentino, I think in maybe the Eagle. They either handed these out or sold them, and this is in a carrier, so I won't get my fingerprints on them. But it's just a souvenir token, and just another cool memorabilia from another way to remember silent films.
Yeah. Are you still collecting things now? Is that ongoing?
Oh yeah, I mean, I try to buy one or two things a week. A couple of weeks ago, I end up getting a cache of stuff. I just happened to have it next to me. I wasn't planning on talking about it, but I can hang on. I'm going to grab it. I'll be right back. Sorry, but anyway, this guy said, I have about 150 photos. And I said, well, I can't afford all of those. And he said, nobody wants them. Would you be interested in them? And he sold them to me for $2 each. And so he gave me this big book full of photos. And I can understand why nobody wanted them. There was one MGM movie that had like William Haynes and Eleanor Boardman in it. There were a couple of Fox films, couple of Paramount films, none with major stars. But the rest of them are like from FBO, film booking offices, little bitty principal pictures, little bitty fly-by-night companies that, I wouldn't even say they're B movies. They're below that were little bitty production companies that sold their movie state rights and didn't have a major studio. So I'm going to have some work trying to identify some of the actors and maybe even some of the films. And
Yeah. So how do you organize your collection? How do you find things?
I have all of the stills in just regular notebooks. I put them in Mylar sleeves. Same for the Heralds. For postcards, you can buy little sleeves that will hold 4 postcards and stuff. But that's how I have it all. A few of the things that are bigger, I have them in bigger boxes and stuff. But
Yeah.
I try to keep them in alphabetical order, but I can't always do it. But
Right. Yeah. I'm just thinking about my record collection behind me there, and you know how it
yep.
is as a collector.
Uh-huh. Well, I do have to get into them because since my website went on, I mean, my website's been around since the late 90s, and people contact me like, about twice a month saying, my grandfather was in films. Do you have any photos from them? And sometimes I have to say no, or a lot of times they may not have really been a movie star. They might have been an extra and stuff. But other times people contact me saying that I'm writing a book on so and so. Can you supply pictures for me? And like I know someone that you know, Laura Gerald's,
Yes.
has written a couple books on Laura LaPlante, and I'm waiting on her book on Marion Nixon right now. And so I sent her some photos from both of those actresses, and I hope my pictures made the book. I don't know. So a lot of times, I had this one lady several years ago. She was writing a book on acting in films, and she said her publisher gave her um, a budget of $1,000 for putting photos in her book. And so she went to like Photo Fest, I think, and maybe Almay. And they said, yeah, you can use our photos for like 200 to 250 a pop. And she thought, well, that's 4 or 5 photos. And she called me and I didn't know her. And so I said, well, I'll give you a few free. And after that, I'll sell them to you for $20. And she said, I got $1,000 to deal with. How many pictures can you give me? And I said, you can have all you want. So I don't know. I gave her like 30 or 40 pictures for that book, but most of the time people don't pay me. I just do it because I'm friends with
Mm.
them. I know them and I want their books to be better. So it's all books are always better with visual aids, and photos from the films they're talking about. So
Right. Well, you showed me some stuff on your site for the books I'm working on, so I appreciate
yeah.
that.
Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of Alice White stuff, but I guess I need to look more. So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. The different when eBay is really cool because you can search for exactly what you want. That doesn't mean you can afford it. Some people on
Right.
eBay think everything is worth $1,000, even if no one's interested in it and stuff. But to me, too, my wife and I still like to go antique shopping, and we'll go shopping, and I'll walk through this whole giant antique mall, and I'll find one postcard or one picture, and it may even be from the 1940s and stuff, but it's cool, and I found it. It's been sitting there for a year or two, waiting for me to come find it. So that's really fun too.
Yeah. So then, how did the website come about? Obviously, you're a computer programmer, so that was a logical
Um,
step, I guess.
Well, actually, it was my wife's idea because she said after we bought the first 100 pictures, she said, well, what are you going to do with these pictures after you identify them? Are you just going to put them in a box? And I said, well, I don't know what I should do. And she said, well, shouldn't you like share them or something? And I thought, well, yeah, if people need a picture, but one of my favorite books from when I was a teenager was A Pictorial History of the Silent Film by Daniel Blum, and I still have that book now. And when I was a teenager, when I was bored, I would just get that book out and look at all of the pictures in it and think, I'm never going to get to see any of these movies. And so I thought, well, and my wife suggested, well, could you do something with a website? And I thought, well, maybe I could do a website like that. We're just showing off all of this stuff from the silent era, even if it's a lost film or something, just so that if people are doing research or they're wondering about an actor or a movie, that they can find it. And so that's what I did when I started. It was I bought a program that does websites. So that company went out of business a long time ago. But now, I mean, although I've been programming for 40 years, I actually only been doing JavaScript for a couple of years. So as soon as I was at work, when I was doing a JavaScript stuff and I was learning how to do a lot of stuff, I thought I'm going to revamp my website. So that's what I'm in the process of doing for the last few months. But I don't know, I have like 1,700 pages of either films or actors and stuff, and I have over 3,000 things in my collection. So, if I put a movie program in it that has a dozen pages, I'm sure I have like 5,000 images on the website. So it's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff to go back and revamp. But
Yeah. I was just thinking, have you ever had the opportunity to meet anyone who worked in silent films?
a few, I met well, no, Jimmy Stewart was not in silent films, but he came to a book signing in the 1990s and here in Dallas. But you've heard of Baby Peggy, haven't you?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, Diana Sierra Carey came to Cinecon almost every year in the 2000s, and she was in her late 80s and 90s and stuff. And several times I got to meet her, and there were a couple times where we got to go out I mean, we were with a group of people, and she wanted to go out. I'm not because she knew me or I was good friends, but with the people I was with, she wanted to go out and eat dinner with us in a break. And a funny story, my friend Jim and I were in that group one year, and she needed a ride to dinner because we were meeting about 7 or 8 other people there. And my friend Jim is slow mobility, and so he walks with a cane. And so he had a
Mm.
rental car, and he said, well, we can take you to the restaurant. And she said, that's great. And so she and I and Jim got in the car, and he was driving. And when she got in the car, Jim said, "Well, put your seatbelt on." And she said, "No, I'm not going to."
Hmm.
And so he was so nervous driving to that restaurant. He thought, I'm going to be the guy that killed baby Peggy because I'm going to be in an accident and she didn't put her seatbelt on. But no, we made it fine and stuff. And Cinecon in the early 2000s had a lot of people, not so much from the silent era, but from the 40s and 30s that came and talked about their films afterwards and stuff. And it was really great.
Yeah. Well, as long as you mentioned Jimmy Stewart, why don't you tell that story?
Oh, well, there's not much of a story to tell. I don't know if you remember, well, you probably, since you're younger than me, in the 90s, he wrote a book of poetry and he went on the Tonight Show, I think, to plug it. And then he came to a bookstore here in Dallas and he was signing books at lunchtime. And I told a buddy of mine at work, I said, we can just take a long lunch and run down to Barnes and Noble and buy the book and get him to sign it. We'll get to meet Jimmy Stewart because I don't know. He was probably in his late 80s by then. So we left lunch a little early, drove straight to Barnes and Noble, and we get there and there's like 300 people in line in front of us. And so we waited and waited and waited. And I don't know, we were like 40 or 50 before he would sign our book and they ran out of books. But he was really nice. He came out and talked to all the people in line and thanked them and stuff. And he was just really, I mean, he was old and moving slow, but I mean, the unmistakable voice.
Yeah.
And he was very nice.
Yeah, I've never heard anything bad about him, so that's not surprising.
Hmm.
Well, just jumping topics again, you kind of touched on your interest in the theater going experience in the silent era. So I'm curious because I know they had the Nickelodeons in the early days and they would show films as part of vaudeville and that kind of thing. But how did the concept of a movie theater start as we know it today?
I really like the episode you did with the lady who ran the Ambler Theater
Yes, Shannon
there
Quinty.
because um, so much of movie history is about making the movies and a little bit about distributing the movies too. And very little of it is about exhibition of the movies. And yeah, it doesn't involve movie stars, but still it's very, very interesting. So, what was the last movie you went to see in a movie theater?
Uh, I can't remember now.
Well, we went to go see The Devil Wears Prada 2 a couple weeks ago. So if you go to movie theaters now, you go in, you're in a recliner, it might have heated seats. People come and take your order, or you can have wine during the meeting, I mean during the film, or where they're not just popcorn, or you can eat a burger and stuff. And they show a bunch of ads before the film. And then of course the previews, which are always, for me, I love the previews. I actually, when I was in college, I worked at a movie theater for 2 years as a projectionist and then as assistant manager. And I always would I love putting the previews on because even if the movie was bad, maybe you saw a good preview before the movie, you know. But theater experience back in the silent era was so different. First of all, in the 1800s or early 1900s, as you wanted to watch a movie, it was just a peep show. That was pretty much it. But in the early 1900s into the mid 1900s and later too, um, uh, up to at least 1915 or more, you could go to a vaudeville show. And I know that you're familiar with vaudeville
Hmm.
because you're an actor and stuff, but vaudeville, for people that don't know, that was where they would have dancers and singers and magicians and comedians and animal acts and all kinds of different things. And there would be like a dozen acts on the show. And movies became one of the acts. And theater owners like movies because the actors didn't have to take a train from town to town. You didn't have to feed them. The movie projectionist didn't get temperamental. If he did, you could easily get another projectionist. So that was how you usually saw movies in the early 1900s. Nickelodeon started in 1905, I think, in Pennsylvania, too, and they just exploded on the scene where people would get a storefront and they would get a sheet or an actual screen and put it on the wall, and they would show short films, maybe five, six, seven films, all 5 to 10 minutes long. And the program probably changed every day and stuff. They might have a player playing, or they might have a pianist playing, or sometimes maybe nothing. And it was just really interesting. Have you ever heard of an air dome theater?
I think so.
Well, an air dome is a drive-in theater without the cars. So in the late teen or the late aughts in 1910s, you could start a theater without even a building. And if you, in the summertime, there was no air conditioning then. And so who would want to go inside a closed theater in June, July, August in the sweltering summer and watch a movie? Well, nobody does that. Sure, they might have some fans blowing in here, but it was still hot. Well, air domes came about because they were so cheap. As long as you had a fenced area, you could put a screen up in it, put some folding chairs out, and hope that it didn't rain. And you could show a film outdoors. And
Right.
so there were a lot of air dome theaters at that time and stuff, and they were really cheap to do. The problem is too, bugs. Bugs,
Right.
like where I live in summertime, mosquitoes were bad and stuff. So I don't know how long they lasted. A really cool program they have from the 19, I think it's like 1916, maybe 1915, is from the Baltimore Orioles baseball park. Now, this was before Baltimore was a major league team. They were just a minor league team. But all baseball games back then were day games because they didn't have giant lights. Well, the theater's sitting there at night and it's dark and they have all of those seats and they have concession stands. So the Baltimore Orioles baseball team was showing movies. They would set a screen up on the field and people would sit in a corner of I don't know if it was the outfield or just the seats and watch a movie. And that's really, really cool. I mean, who would have thought of that, you know?
Yeah. Well, I guess. Sorry, I'm kind of lost for words here because you're giving me a lot to
Uh,
think about. But yeah, I guess I was just getting to the idea of once feature films started, and then the idea of theaters that were dedicated to showing features.
yes, features, as soon as, well, the Italians started making features about 1911, 1912, and there were a few made in America like 1912, 1913, but Europeans adopted that more. They didn't really fit in with the business model of American theaters then, but in 1912, Adolf Zukor imported Queen Elizabeth with Sarah Bernhardt from France to the US, and they showed it with a big orchestra like it was a major event. And that got him enough movie to start Famous Players, which ended up becoming Paramount. And they signed Mary Pickford pretty early. They signed a whole bunch of stage actors thinking that these are people important on the New York stage. People don't want to see them in movies. But number one, most of them weren't great movie actors. And number two, people out in the sticks out in the country didn't want to see, a Broadway movie actor and stuff. So he wasn't very successful, but he did hit on a few like Mary Pickford. Pauline Frederick is another one who was a stage actor who made a lot of apparently good movies, but they're almost all lost.
Hmm.
And but in big cities, you could go see these movies and they would have a full orchestra and they might have a stage show all the time. In like in Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and New York.
Yeah.
That leads me to another thing too that was really different back then than is now is that I would have thought, have you when you were in college you went to midnight movies, didn't you?
No, actually, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't? When I was in college, they had midnight movies either on campus or off campus, and they would be showing, biker movies or I don't know, teenage sex movies and stuff like that. They would think kids are out having a good time at midnight. And I thought, well, this must have been something that started in the 60s or 70s. No, I couldn't believe it when I started collecting my programs. New York theaters in the 1915 were showing midnight movies on the
Hmm.
weekend because New York's a town that never sleeps.
Yeah.
And so people are out on the town and they would have a show, it might start at 11:30, 11:45 that goes to midnight.
What were they
And
showing? Just the standard movies of the time?
it would be the same feature that they were showing all the time.
Yeah.
But another phenomenon that I encountered, and I have several of examples of it, is on New Year's Eve, a lot of movies, especially in the 20s, were showing midnight movies. Um, I have a feeling, it was 1920 that Prohibition started and it lasted till mid 1933.
Yep.
In a lot of smaller towns, you couldn't actually go to a party where they were serving alcohol because it was illegal. And people, if your word got out that you were drinking alcohol, it was bad on you. You could get away with it in big towns and stuff because nobody knew everybody. So I have a feeling a lot of theaters started putting on midnight shows on New Year's Eve because it was a good way to party. They would serve I don't know, non-alcoholic drinks, candy, popcorn, and stuff. And right after midnight, you start out the year with watching a new fun film.
Yeah. Well, I was curious too about the idea of double features. How did that
Oh,
start?
yeah, double features. Double features were really huge in the 30s because of the Depression. People didn't have a lot of money to go to movies, and so to pull people in, theater owners started showing two features for the price of one. That was kind of bad if you like shorts. So shorts, I mean, they still might show a cartoon because those are only 5 or 6 minutes, but shorts in the Depression, number one, any musical acts probably are gone because they don't need an orchestra or piano player anymore. So, I mean, that's when they got big, but actually double features came out in the 1920s. So after a
Uh,
movie had been out for a while, it would go on a double feature when you could go see two movies. And of course, these were not at major theaters. They'd be at a neighborhood theater where admission was not very expensive and stuff. But in the 30s and 40s, studios made B movies. That's what we call them, B movies. They were made to be on the second half of a double feature, and these would only be like 55 to maybe 70 minutes. So they would specifically be the second film that you went to go see.
right.
But we know if you've seen a lot of them, some of them are pretty darn good. It's
Yeah.
just that they were never intended to be the main attraction.
Right. I guess Detour is coming to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, what about the idea of showing shorts before a feature? Did that start pretty much from the beginning?
In the teens, at Nickelodeon's, they were all shorts.
Right.
But even when they were showing features in like big theaters in New York, Philadelphia, and LA, they would always show some kind of comedy slapstick short before a feature. In the late teens, though, there were some theaters that only showed shorts. Now, when we say shorts, that doesn't mean it was a 10-minute thing. The classical definition is under 40 minutes, but a lot of the movies in the teens were three reelers or two reelers. So 20 to maybe 35 minutes and stuff, that was still considered a short.
Right.
But yeah, I have several programs from theaters that were showing like five shorts, and that was the whole program. And theaters would occasionally bring that back, especially because of Charlie Chaplin. Because when Chaplin would come out with a new feature, especially like in his first national period, but even in Mutual, where theaters were showing features, well, sometimes people were just going to go see the Charlie Chaplin short and they didn't care about what else was on. And so rather than waste all your rental money on another feature that people weren't even there to see, they would just program a bunch more shorts to go with the Chaplin short.
Right. And there's something I guess I've talked about on my show before, which is, I think about the fact that not as many people are going to theaters now. People are staying home watching streaming movies, and I kind of worry that the traditional theater going experience is going to start to disappear maybe in the next 10 years or so. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it will stick around. I mean, it's definitely not a growth business, and I wouldn't want to invest money in it. But things like, the reclining seats and cup holders and stuff like that, I think it will stay around. Ever since I was a teenager, theaters always programmed towards people in their teens and 20s anyway. Those are the
Hmm.
people that they're going out on dates or they need something to do on the weekend and go. Now, and there will always be, Disney, Pixar will still come out with their films that you can bring the kids to, and people will always bring their kids to that. I think Toy Story 5 comes out in 2 or 3 weeks. So people will be going to that. But one of the reasons that I love the Kansas Silent Film Festival, I like working there, is it's actually not in a movie theater. It's at a university, Washburn University. It's in their concert hall. But we have live music, and Capitol Fest is the same way. They have live
Yeah.
music, um, where Ben Modell and Jeff Rapsis and the Monello Motion Picture Company come. And so even if I've seen a movie, I've seen it on a TV monitor with recorded music, and it's when you can hear like Donald Sozin come and play for film, it's just a totally different film when it's on a big screen with live music
Yeah.
we're watching it with 700 people, and especially comedies. I mean, I chuckled at Safety Last when I watched it on video for the first time. When I saw it in a theater with like 500 people, I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yeah. I saw it in a theater, but it was a smaller crowd. But I can
Uh-huh.
imagine with 500 people, it would be really something.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I hope that these things that we love will stay around for a while.
Hmm.
And that's, as you know, that's something I talk about on this show often. I kind of wonder what the future of this stuff is going to be, but I'm glad you're being optimistic about it.
Well, there will definitely always be film festivals, major events, and stuff like that. In a lot of towns, we lived in West Texas in a small town for 3 years, where my wife's parents live and stuff. And they had an old 1927 movie theater there that I helped raise money for to restore. And now it's a performing arts center, but they also show movies on the weekends and stuff. So, and it's the only theater left because in small towns, the movie chains have abandoned them. So it's still, people still go to the movies in smaller towns because there's just not as much stuff to do.
Sure. Well, there are a couple other things I wanted to touch on, and then I'll let you go. But I also wanted to mention that you've been in a couple of movies. You've been an extra in a couple of things. So tell me about that. As someone who loves movies and then getting to participate in them, that must have been interesting.
Well, I mean, I did get my degree in film, but there's occasionally there are movies that are filmed in Dallas, and I just happen to know someone that was working on the film. The first one was Modern Child, which was in the 80s.
Yeah.
It had John Ritter in it, and I was actually supposed to just be wrangling the kids because they were performing circus scenes there.
Oh, I
But
see.
one of the production assistants grabbed me and they said, "We want you to wander around in the background with these kids, pretend like you're their dad." And so I filmed that, but then they had me come back the next day and I got to stand next to John Ritter and the other people while they filmed a dialogue scene. And that was really cool. But I thought, you know what? This dialogue is not really funny. And that was confirmed when the movie came out and the scene that I was in was totally not in the film.
Hmm.
So I was a failure there. Not that I really care. Most people are ogling the actors and stuff, and I'm sitting there watching the guy, focus the camera and the sound man get the microphone ready. Another film that was a few years ago that was filmed was My All-American. Was filmed here in Dallas because it's about the UT football team, which I just happened to go to, but that was a coincidence. And it's about one of their players who got cancer in the 1960s, but he
Oh,
kept trying to play, but it got bad and his leg was amputated. And they filmed several football games at once in a couple days at the Cotton Bowl here in Texas, which used to hold the actual Cotton Bowl, and now it's moved to AT&T Stadium that Jerry Jones owned. And it was June, so it was really hot, but we were filming scenes that were supposed to take place like on January 1st or in December. So we had to wear hot, heavy jackets and stuff. And they couldn't be like nylon. They had to be authentic jackets, so they were hot. But my son, well, both of my sons were in marching band. My older son was in the band, and his high school band was paid money to come to the film shoot and put on different band uniforms. And they didn't march, but they played in the stands. They didn't actually play. They pretended to play because they dubbed the music in later, just for
hmm.
stock shots of the band and the crowd. And I was in the crowd too. But one afternoon while I was there, my son and I got to go up in the stands and we sat next to a couple of the actresses while they had a dialogue scene in there. I was on the edge of it, and I've only watched it a couple times. I don't think my face is in there, or my body is. But my son Harrison, he made the film, and he's there sitting next to them while they're having the dialogue scene. So that's always fun to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah, it's funny. I've never been an extra in a movie, but I've done voices for a couple of things. So we both have IMDb listings because of these little things that come up.
Yes. Um,
Anyway, I guess I should let you go. But what's coming up? What are you doing this summer?
well, like I said, I hope I'm going to Capitol Fest. I hope I can see you there. Maybe we have
I
lunch
hope
or
so.
something.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting on a bonus to come through for work to book my plane tickets. Hopefully, the price of airfare will come down because it's pretty high right now. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a stack of Blu-rays next to my TV that I need to watch, but new ones come out, and I think, oh, I need to watch that movie too. So
Yeah.
hopefully, I can take some time off and watch some good movies this summer.
Good. All right. Well, thank you, Bruce. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
And it's been fun talking to you too, and I hope to see you online too.
Okay, I'll be in touch. Take care.
Bye.